Poetry night is a beautiful thing to witness, so thank you all for coming. My name is Courtney Terry. I work at the public library here in McMinnville, and we partner every month on the first Thursday at 6 p.m. with Dan and Nancy, owners of the gallery at 10 Oaks, to hold these poetry nights. Don't worry. Hi, good evening. Thank you so much for coming tonight. I'm Courtney. I am from McMinnville Public Library. This is Poetry Night at 10 Oaks, our monthly poetry reading and open mic. Thank you all for coming. Announcements from the library. It's February. And I got completely mixed up because I was already making plans for April, which is Poetry Month and coming up in 2 months, and we're going to have 2 different poetry programs in April, and so I was about to announce one of those and then realized it's still February. So coming in April, we'll have 2 poetry programs. And we have, I will say, I'm sure Mike will bring it up, but you have 1 month until February 28th. We have our annual Paper Gardens Writing Contest by Arts Alliance of Yamhill County, and so entries are due. I believe it's a $10 entry fee for adults. Okay, thank you. I'm so glad you're here to nod and answer my questions for me. So it's a $10 entry fee for adults. Entries are due by February 28th. It's an amazing publication. We will have entries from both kids and adults, and then we get together to celebrate the winners who are published in a very special book of their own the first week in May. Did I forget anything else about it? Yay! Yeah, Paper Gardens is awesome, and since you're here with your own poetry, yep, there's a beautiful book. Just remember that's always an option. Okay, thank you all for coming. I'm going to just take it right over to Jessica Mehta. She's here from Portland, and thanks for coming. Let's get started. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm embarrassed to admit I'm a native Oregonian. I've lived in the Portland area for almost 25 years, and I've never actually been to McMinnville. Sorry. Thank you. I think I've been to a winery nearby once, but I didn't know it was so big. Yeah. So it's been a good little journey through the back roads to get here. So native Oregonian, I grew up in Southern Oregon. I'm also a citizen of the Cherokee Nation. So as you will see, space, place, and ancestry inform a lot of my work. And not to start this night on a total bummer, but I realized earlier this week that today is actually the 2-year anniversary of my mom's passing. And it was of an opioid overdose, which means it was simultaneously really sudden and expected for a while. So in that sentiment, I've included, well, a lot of my poems are about death anyway. A lot of that, and then some mom poems in there. Let's see, I will start with Death's Usher, which is actually the last poem I wrote, and as such is not included in any of my books, either here or forthcoming. I have cradled so many dying things in these arms, my breast is a slow beating graveyard. Rest open the brittle bars of my rib cage, the arching foyer to this wanting mausoleum. Guilt is so heavy, so much more slippery than sorrow. These hands know the subtleties between early leaving seizures and last no take-back spasms. Death's usher perched at the in-between, I'll ever carry those echoing tremors reverberating through my bones. Another notch in my osteobiography. So many expirations I've blown out in coos and shushes. Let us talk gently to the moribund. This morning, after your stiffness settled permanent in my skeleton, I brought the red plums to a second boil, drowned them syrup slow in saccharine pores, dumbly costive, as if sweetness alone might hasten this season to end. When I was writing this, I thought to myself, surely there's a beautiful, probably Latin word for marks left on bones. One of my exes, who is a surgeon, but he's in residency now, so that means he's still editing for me because he doesn't get paid anything. I'm like, I will ask him because I couldn't find anything online. And he's like, no, we call it something like a nick on the femur or something like that. So I found the term osteobiography, which is the closest thing, and it was just coined in something like the 80s or 90s. So someone out there can create a term, although I think osteobiography is pretty good. This is my mother's remains with the apostrophe S in parentheses. Do you want to go to the Bahamas? I opened my mother's ashes and was taken by the color. Somehow I thought she'd be slate, but she was like Florida, coarse and tawny. What remains is heavier than you'd think, full of bones and grit. The weight tugs you down. As I spooned her into the little glass jar, I remembered being 6. My aunt packed tight in a cardboard urn while the lot of us boarded a shaky propeller plane. The pilot never said, hold it low. Let the wind lap what's left. She swarmed us like wild things, left a thick coating, and we licked her chars from philtrums. Brackish and dry, she shot to our innards, becoming a burrowing, permanent part of us all. I thought, I don't want my mother to stay. Haunt my organs, blow like smoke through dreams. How long can someone stick to the familiar? Cling scared to all we hate. Like the gold beggar children in Mexico, I brushed her from my skirt, held my breath against her dust, and maybe if I sprinkle her in the turquoise of the tropics, salt the rim a little more, she'll finally, after so many years, release those bitten nails and let me go. Wow. I actually went to the Bahamas with my closest friend, and she asked if she wanted me to take photos. So I do have a photo of that, and I did not inhale anything this time. Namesakes. My mother named me after her father she hated. Like buying Papa's notice with a fat grandchild would make up for anything. My mother named me after famous cowboys, then went and married an Indian herself. Meanwhile, her own mother said, no darker. My mom named me the second most popular girl's name in 1981 because firsts were for good girls without panic. My middle name was the same as a boy in 6th grade with greasy nails and dirty hair, so I said it was short for Colette. My mother was a surprise 15 years too late. In the hospital, her father said, she ain't much to look at, is she? And asked the nurse to name her. The girl chose Rita after her own child, and nobody not nowhere ever could say a pearl was an ugly thing. My mother named me for a man she despised well after his girth had gone to skeleton and the coffin flies went still, but still, I thought a namesake should mean something. Good and holy, clean slates, buried shames, and starting overs. So here's a little quiz. My first name is Jessica. Anyone know what my middle name is? Yep, Cole. Jesse James and Cole Younger game. Which supposedly my maternal grandfather said we were related to, but I could never find any proof of that. It's no longer my middle name. My husband's from India, and in his community's tradition, the wife's middle name becomes the husband's first name, which is super fun when you're traveling in places that don't realize that, because it looks like we kind of have the same name. This is how I like my women. I like my women slight and frail, bones hollowly light, rib cages pressed like prison bars against the skin. I love the women with stomachs caved in, divots carved like ice cream scoops below breasts begging to melt. It's the women with the lips like readied blisters, skin sautéed in good genes and creams that remind me how exquisite we are, and of all I'll never be. All the ways. Know that just because we're quiet doesn't mean we aren't railing inside. We ate herring in red coats, and I told you all the ways I'd kill myself, how your lips were wilder than the moon. It's a lie that we're born alone, die alone, we arrive through slick thighs, wet bellies, and maybe we'll never see our mothers again. Maybe she'll stick to us like burned batter all our lonely lives. And we'll die with all those lovers, gone mothers, animals that licked our hurts, knotted like stowaways in the most secret, desolate chambers of our hearts. They usher us, shaking, straight into the luminous. I guess I like the word usher too in there. I was once told that I like the word spoon, and then I realized the selection I was reading at that time had spoon in something like 5 poems, but it's a good word. Okay, so probably a lot of you know who this is about, but you might know from the title, but I'll ask you at the end. Dominican man. You want a Dominican man. To not be a Dominican man. Act like the culture's rinsed clean off as soon as the white gatekeepers say, he did real good. You stack that Dominican man up real high, tangled parts and broken bits, an effigy thirsty to burn. Take that DR and saw the big R in half so it don't roll no more. Trills are too hard for some folks, but everyone respects a doctor. You say, Dominican man, tell us how. But how do you write and publish and sell misogyny and machismo, forced kisses and grabbing asses if you don't live and breathe and be it too? Dominican man, he opened doors wide like young thighs, and everyone loves a gentleman. Anyone know? Juno Diaz? So this poem has not ellipses, it's asterisks, and so I've stolen how to read this because I don't know how. And I stole it from a fellow Portland poet, Pamela Santos, and she does this. So that is what I have adopted. It's Pulitzer Prize Pig, because this would be a defamation, probably. Pulitzer Prize Pig spoke of what it means to be, as a man with a look, the look, that look, women were born knowing how to read. I knew that look, the look, at 15, when the AP teacher crouched beside my desk in the dark, flashes of syphilis and gonorrhea shuddering across the projector screen. Still, even now, I hear the tired clicking of the tapes. I knew the look, saw a look at 11, when grown men whistled at my unfolding hips and high school boys rolled Corollas along middle school parking lots with eyes that spider scurried pressed breasts. And I knew I saw that look, his look, at 4. In the bathtub, I learned shame. I shot my father in the eye with a plastic alligator squirt gun and never bathed with open doors again. Pulitzer Prize Pig sidled up close, nosed for nipple drinkers and sniffed out my slop. Trough walls are low but sticky, slick beside styes, and boars are happy with scraps. So in 2018-19, I did a 9-month fellowship at Halcyon Arts Lab in Washington, D.C. And they brought me there to curate an anthology of poetry by incarcerated Indigenous women, which meant I traveled the country leading workshops in facilities and community centers. So teaching anyone who has never tried to write a poem or who was told that they weren't good at writing poetry, or like most of us were first introduced to poetry when we were 15 with Shakespeare, and who relates to that, is very, very difficult. My natural style is pretty free verse, although there are some different forms in there. Kind of simultaneously, I started playing with a form that I call the antipode because I've seen little snippets that are kind of like it, so it's kind of like a palindrome, it's kind of like reverse poetry, but basically you can read it forward or backward, word by word, instead of line by line. I did see it called mirror poetry, but then there have been different versions of that, so I'm not really sure. I wrote an entire book of antipodes coming out in 2021, but this form ended up being the most popular in all of those workshops, and it's really because it feels like putting together a puzzle. It doesn't really feel like writing poetry. So it removes those perceived barriers of poetry is boring, or it's elitist, or it's too sophisticated. There's also an algorithm on my author site, which is just jessicamehta.com, where you can write something and it automatically reverses it. So it's kind of easy, I think it's easier to visually see, but you'll be able to hear the echoing. I'll read it in the first direction, and this is called Awakening Bedrooms of Monsters. Monsters of bedrooms awakening in stumbles. Baby, the nightmares mean experience. Infants screaming for comfort, give milk and wash diapers. Victim playing, victims blaming, innocence disappearing with understanding. Mama's afternoon, everyone full of drink. Fine, it's history repeating and apples falling close. Kids having babies, thighs sealed with daddy watching, night after night, nothing's different. Nothing's different. There's truth and there are lies. Your eyes are closed. We offered prayers to deaf gods. All right, this is it in reverse. God's deaf to prayers offered. We closed our eyes. Your lies are there and truth is there. Different nothings, night after night. Watching daddy with sealed thighs, babies having kids, close falling apples, and repeating history. It's fine. Drink a full one every afternoon. Mama's understanding with disappearing innocence. Victims blaming, victim playing. Diapers washed and milk give comfort for screaming infants. Experience mean nightmares. The baby stumbles in, awakening bedrooms of monsters. I don't love writing these, and the strange thing about it, I'm kind of paraphrasing Sylvia Plath here. I don't remember exactly how she wrote it, but it was something like any good atheist, all of my work is about God. And all of these antipodes are about Christianity and Catholicism, which I have absolutely no connection to. I said, I'm going to sit down for 50 days straight and write one a day. And I did. And there were days I dreaded it. Project done. So this is How to Talk to the Dying. But this is about my sister. She was 15 years older than me. I didn't know about her existence until I was 18. And like my dad, she was in and out of rehab, in and out of prison all of her life. Actually, my dad and my sister both died of hepatitis C, which is pretty rare these days. My dad's was from a dirty needle in prison getting a tattoo. He never did drugs besides that. And my sister, it was from heroin and meth addiction. I looked up what to say to the dying because words get stuck in my hands. There's no good answers. You died the same way our father did, yellow skin and lion eyes. What do you say to your sister out on the reservation? I love you, that's it. Your husband told me you smiled and poured your own love you back into me all the way down through the wires. The voice deep, dark, and foreign, like a stranger's always is. That was maybe the toughest thing, definitely top 3, that I've ever had to do. I was estranged from my sister for about 2 or 3 years. I didn't know that she was dying. I heard about it through extended family, and by the time I could call, her new husband, who I had never met, answered, and I asked if I could talk to her. I asked if he knew who I was, and he said, yeah, she's talked about you. But she was at the point where she couldn't speak. So he said, I'll hold the phone up to her. I wasn't expecting that. I mean, that same day had found out everything. And when you are put in that situation and you don't know how many people are in the room listening, you got to think fast what to do. And so all I could do was tell stories of the good times we had. I was going to say, you know what, this one's called Dawn and Death in Stratford. I'll skip it and give you a break. And I looked at the next one. It's got death in the title too, so you know what, just hold on. This is called Dawn and Death in Stratford. It could also be called The Story of How I Became a Vegetarian. I never held a dying thing until today. The pigeon I scooped from the roadside, its neck long and shouted, whispering reassurances to slow blinking eyes, I cradled the broken body in the park while life spiraled to empty. Barely dawn, there wasn't emergency vet services or anyone to watch me carry the body in a split-open Ziploc bag. Afraid to bash his head in, worried I might miss, there was nothing I could do but coo and usher him to closed eyes, stillness, but I carried his heat heavy in my palms all the way to daylight. I sat there with that pigeon for at least an hour, and as soon as I picked him up, he settled and he was calm. And I sat, this sounds made up, in a park that I crossed all the time at dawn going to the gym under a tree. And after an hour, it was like meant to be this log, maybe 5 feet away. And I'm like, all right, I can do it. I can do it. I can kill him with the log. And I get up and I put him down. I get the log. I come back and he had died. Like, he was waiting for me to leave that entire hour. So the falsity of fast deaths is actually about my friend's cat, and she told me this story so blithely. Like, this is what happened. And I don't, the image in my head, I don't know if it's worse or better, I'll never know, but this is what I imagined. You picture broken necks quick as wishing bones. I didn't know the head could hang for hours, limp and heavy as forgotten, unsqueezed washcloths. That you still had to rush them to the vet, cradle their little heads like overripe persimmons. Cruel, how the nearly dead are sentenced to stare at the earth, the descent so slow. Welcoming black soil, readying her grip for the space spooned just for you. Apparently their cat Oreo liked to jump from tall heights, and they woke up and found that. This is place settings. I've never belonged at any table, but I pass the salt and looked up which fork to use in an etiquette book. All my family's dead, so nobody's left that knows there's an Indian girl with a sick head who grew up poor and sometimes likes to fuck women gone and snuck into this little fete. They don't look too close because I got no color and haven't been homeless in years. Taught myself how to talk right with sitcoms. These days, I only slip up sometimes. Usually when the drinks kick in or in catching the smell of a fellow interloper, overlooked, uninvited guest. And we smile, tight lips coating teeth, because a feast is always better when it's free, and a gorging always sweeter for the starved. Bad Indian is actually also the title of my next poetry collection from Brickmantle Books coming out in April. And I swear I wrote this before Elizabeth Warren was a contender, okay? Bad Indian, not a speaker. Who gives a damn if they beat it out of my father in residential boarding school? They say pretendian, and an old man with creamed blue eyes cackled after demanding my ancestry. Everyone's a Cherokee. I apologize for green eyes, pale skin. It's not enough to soften cries of Wanabe clan, Elizabeth Warren all over again. Once an elder vet spit on my wanting cheekbones, my braids that I didn't know Lakota. I did not choose my skin or the trauma curdling rancid through my blood. We are born into creation disasters, settled war zones, armed with chance defenses, so forgive me that ivory is my weapon. Poachers try and they show teeth, dressed in polyester and crafted altruism. But I am fast and I remember. I'm Kamama. You really think you got us all? We still roam our land 13,000 years as a single heartbeat in the whole story. I am telling you, listen. I am hungry, matriarch made too young. My grief's too big to contain, and like Domini, I will starve 24 days to die from broken chambers. And by God, how you will keen. Spill cracked bone to your knees, pay homage to my skeleton, to this bad Indian. Kamama is the Cherokee word for elephant. And it was a while after I found this out that I thought, why did Cherokees have a word for elephant? I'm not sure if it was something, I didn't do that much research. I'm not sure if it was something that was adopted as a word, after post-colonial. But then I also did do some research, and elephants were here 13,000 years ago in North America. I had no idea. So I'm not sure if it's a really old word or a really new word. But Domini was an elephant in a zoo who was born into captivity, and she immediately bonded and partnered with another elephant. And they lived together for over 20 years. And when she died, when her partner died, she starved herself in grief for 24 days and died of a broken heart. I'm going to end on Savagery, which is a short one. It's also the title of the latest book that's out right here by Airlie Press. I'm sure most of you know that savage is a derogatory term for Native Americans. The definition of it, though, is also wild and feral. I think that's an amazing thing, especially for any woman to be. Some people are reclaiming it. I consider myself one of them. I've gotten plenty of flack for the title already, so I'm full on that. But yeah, here we go. What are you? I can see the Indian in your cheekbones. My skin, white as the albumin on salmon, the only whisper of Cherokee etched into the bones, begging to be birthed. Show me your tribal card, your ancestry lineage, proof of Dawes rolls in your blood. Am I not native enough for you? You look like something savage and uncontained. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jessica. Got to use my mic. You're first. Okay, we're going right into open mic. Here's Mike.
I apologize that I have to go immediately upon finishing because I'm volunteering at the gallery. And they're having their dress rehearsal for Noses Off. Starts tomorrow. My name's Mike Santone. I'm going to start with a Paper Gardens pitch. I'm going to just read, the other thing is I'm going to read a poem that originated from our project fundraiser for the library. Third on Third, McMinnville's Art and Wine Walk, we set up a table in Ransom's tasting room, which is next to Nick's Cafe on 3rd. And for $5, you give us a topic, a few minutes. We have typewriters, and we type up a poem and give it to you. And then the money goes to support them. So it's an improv, and it's pretty exciting. I'm going to read one poem, and it's an improv from the topic Star-Crossed Lover. Energy of the heart. It's funny about the stars in the night, funny how they seem to float and dance, yet stay so far apart. Before their light blends together, as we watch from a second-story window of a place we happen to find, looking for somewhere else. Was it an accident we found our common signs and patterns? There is a magnetism holding us together and forcing us apart. Unseen bands, forces of the universe, and the energy of the human heart. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. And I will also add, we are very appreciative of the Poetry While You Wait program. Thanks to the funds that our poets have gotten, we are able to give honorariums to every one of our featured poets who come and read, which is, before we asked them to do it for free, and they always would, but it feels really good to be able to give back a little bit for what they give to us. So thanks again for all of our, I see you out there, poets who have done poems Why People Have Waited. And next, Bonnie. Yes.
Does everybody like to do puzzles? Puzzles of all kinds? Well, puzzles puzzle me. What is it about puzzles that fascinate me so? The discovery of something that doesn't even show. There's so many puzzles of every possible kind, all of them created to tease and sharpen the mind. There are jigsaws, crosswords, and locks, so sudokus, cross sums, and paradox, mazes, matchsticks, and mechanicals, rebus, meta puzzles, and mathematicals, puzzle hunts, acrostics, logics, and anagrams, magic squares, brain teasers, and cryptograms. They all are fun to see and fun to do. Testing your brain is good for you. Working on puzzles hour after hour, it's supposed to increase your brain power. But I have found the more puzzles I try, the more confused I get and almost cry. So I think I will settle on one or two of the easy ones that I know I can do. I will work on my favorites and leave the rest for those people whose brains are among the best.
Hey. Thank you, Bonnie. Bruce.
Bruce Sahagian. This is a poem called Groundhog. So many animals serve us and help our fortunes grow, played like stacks of chips in our food chain casino. We admire our furry brothers, the feathered and scaly hordes. Their instincts seem like magic, so we seek their wisdom, sneak a peek at their cards. We set a date for the groundhog midway between the equinox. We don't invite the robin or trouble with frogs. Bold little groundhog, forever grooving in burrows and charting new furrows. Maybe your perspective will help us all know, are we nearly through with this year's snow? Shine a light, Mr. Marmot. Guide us to better crops. Will all the frozen flakes soon melt to raindrops? We could never rely on the fox or coyotes who yelp during stalks. It's too soon for ducks or young spike-horned bucks, and the geese mostly stick with their flocks. We'll overlook that you never brush or comb, and there are piles of dirt in your home. You never bother getting dressed, and farmers have declared you're a pest. Now your big day is finally at hand. Please don't run off sooner than planned. Oh, and no tunneling under the podium stand, or chewing on the mayor's hand, with oil leaking from your musky gland. When it's time for your close-up, it costs 20 grand. So it's best if you're locked in a cage, you understand. Sure, you're the color of a lucky penny, forever consuming four-leaf clover. Still, why so much fuss over a cousin of a gopher? Why make groundhogs into media stars? So they can blow smoke rings and chomp big cigars? You've done for far less than lamb mice or search and rescue hounds. Yet your fame on the calendar frankly astounds. Will there be a million marmot march with frogs and parades calling for a halt to all steel tractor blades? If so, then stand proud to be heard over the crowd and let everyone know you cannot be plowed.
Thank you, Bruce. Dick?
I love poetry. I love poets. I'm not one yet, but that doesn't mean I'm not working on it. I would like to read two poems from my favorite poet, Barbara Drake. Barbara Drake wrote a book of poems called Driving 100. This book is available in 3rd Street Books. Driving 100. We were in 1956 in Sarah's boyfriend's car out on the new highway south of Coos Bay toward Millington, named for a mill and the Shingle House Slough, where years later someone's father's ashes would be scattered, his last wish. We went to Sarah's boyfriend's car, a black convertible, and she, wishing to try on speed, drove fast. Fast, faster, pushing the speedometer to 60, 70, 80 as we screamed and laughed and held ourselves down on the seats without seat belts. Our hair in the wind lashed us like something creaking over a waterfall, and afraid our young meat and bones would be scattered. We screamed at Sarah, slow down, Sarah. And then she did 90, laughing. He'll kill me if he ever finds out. You guys don't tell. And pushed the pedal down and held it as we went fast and faster, screaming and dying and laughing at Sarah until the needle stood at 100 and Sarah relented, and we chided her then and began to breathe again at 60, 50, 40, did a U at 20. Turned around at the cutoff at Coquille. I almost died, we all said. I'll never do that again. And our flesh settled down to go on living as we secretly thanked her like a goddess for a terrible experience. The second poem is titled, In the Eye of One Who Loves You. The dunes fill the picture, their ribbed surfaces like sand at low tide, the shadow behind each dune black as the far side of the moon. And there is my mother, a tiny figure walking across the sand. I imagine she likes looking at this photograph because it reminds her of being in my father's eye, as from a distance he took the picture. He's gone now, but in this picture he always has his eye on her.
Yeah.
You can always find me. Go to the end of the corridor.
Well, you can't get too far. Thank you, Dick. And we have Paul.
Okay. I lost my beloved Carol 5 years ago, and we're bird watchers. She lived here years and years, since the 60s. I moved here to be with her a few years ago, and then she passed on. Part of what we did as birders was chase all over Yamhill County looking for as many birds as we could see. Carol still holds the record for the most birds seen in this county in her lifetime and in 1 year. And one of the things we did was travel out to the west in the Forest Service roads, Road 14 from Bible Creek going westward. And then there's another road 12, Forest Road 12, beyond that we planned to do but didn't get to. So, crossing the edge, where the old dull putty knife of the continental plate has worked thousands of years to push up the crust of the ocean plate, the Coast Range. At the jumbled edge of new land, adolescent and unsettled, I stand, facing west. Below me, the terrain falls steeply, carved by seasons of erosion. At the edge of an old forest with tall boles and complex understory, grown for over 100 years, loggers and machines have worked to make a clear cut. Open, new, with young firs, house wrens, and white-crowned sparrows. Over my shoulder, I see the old growth of Carol's 76 years, a complex forest of roots, trunks, branches, undergrowth, lived through seasons of weather and storms. Soft light filtered down through a sheltering canopy, a last decade of sunshine. Before me, I see a clear cut. What will grow there? I want to return to the forest behind me. The little fledgling McGillivray's warbler eyes me curiously from the brush. At the start of its short lifespan, what can it know of 76 years? In our short lifetimes, what can either of us know of the 100 years of the forest? What can either of us know of the growth of the new land below our feet? What can I know of the life before me? The land, the firs, the warbler and I shall go west to explore the new land, the one Carol and I were going to do. Just one more here. This one I wrote in November 2016. And it's appropriate still today. Seeking counsel. I stand at her grave, looking upon her name, seeing the years she lived and the soaring eagle in the stone. I cry out to her to teach me how to have a peaceful mind in these troubled times. She who lived through so many troubles. I'm glad she is not here to see this day, but I wish she were here to help me through it. She'd know how.
And Mike.
Trust me, I'm professional. So I just moved back down here from Southwest Portland area. And while I was there, I was in part of many writing groups. And during one of them, I for whatever reason, popped in my mind the first line of Shakespeare's Sonnet 18, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" And I did my own take on it, though it's not the exact same line. It shouldn't surprise you once you know that I was part in a writing group that met in a bar in Southwest Portland. Should I compare you to an IPA, or should it be a favorite coffee? There's a bitterness with either way, though both these drinks are appealing to me. Shall I call you bitter or call you sweet? I don't know the right choice between the two. Using taste is a possible feat because I've never had a taste of you. If taste is not a metric to be used as I work with a poetic device, what is it that's unable to be refused? What comparison is worthy, precise? Can you or someone else please clearly show if it is possible for me to know?
Chris.
I'd like to read two, because that's what I plan to do. The first one was intended to be sort of a pastiche of a 18th century broadside ballad, although it kind of gets less like that as it goes on. But not expecting to have anyone in the audience who was related to original native peoples, I guess I must apologize. When I come to the word as the title of your book, I can do an ellipsis if you like. All right. It's supposed to be 18th century. That's the reason I used it. Okay, it's called The Soldier's Farewell, or Talking Himself Around. Now fare thee well, my own true love, and keep me in your prayers. I'm bound away to war, my dear, about our king's affairs. We're sent to fight that rebel crew who will not pay their tax, abusing the king's parliament, its wise and lawful acts. No seat there wards or represents their interests, they complain. Why, who's the representative for poor working men? Fine gentlemen enclose our land that's common been for aye, and we have no recourse in law, not even if we could pay. The common's needful to the poor for grazing, fuel, and meat. The gentry steal our livelihoods, and we can only bleat. Authority will hear no appeal, no protest, nor petition. And who makes one may be hanged or transported for sedition. The colonists are up in arms at power's high-handed ways, but if it comes to that, we poor are much in the same case. But they are living in a land where any man may claim to clear and farm 10 acres just for signing of his name. The sergeant says the land is good, though savages abound, and one may clear a passage there for under £14. If ever I come home again, we'll take my campaign pay and sail as immigrants abroad to far America. The other one's much more recent. It's last week, I think. I may never see again a winter window pane filled with frost ferns interarching like a magic Gothic wood, and the snow light on the ceiling giving that excited feeling in those post-war hard winters of my early childhood. I would try to trace a pathway through those crazy leaning archways, for the farthest surely overlooked Jack Frost's dominion. But I never really minded being unable to find it, because its elusive mystery is what makes magic fun. Our wool blankets slightly ragged, and the plaster's cracks ran jagged, caused by one V2 that had landed just a block away. So it is I feel estranged from whatever caused the change into this smart and meretricious world I see today. And if one day the Gulf Stream, as they say, runs out of steam, so the Thames freezes over hard in winter every year, Jack Frost will once again etch frost ferns on every pane of windows that aren't double glazed. But I won't be there.
Deb?
Hi, I'm Deborah Weiner, and this piece is titled Stumbling. Climbing creatively, sometimes you fall. Crashing, smashing, terror overtakes all. Seek truth through the pain. Let tears flow, insights remain. Bring breath up to the heart, eyes to the sky. See beauty, go kindly, be willing to try. Move past fear, though it feels strange. Recenter, pull deep, trust, rearrange. Listen, be playful, it's difficult. Rest with love, courage, peace. Continue the quest.
Dave?
I think the title for my next poem will be Courtney Dances with Us All. I'll work on it. This first poem is inspired by a Bible verse that says, when you give, don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Made me think about my left hand. Ever moving, my right hand performs the day's task. It is the dexterous one, the one that pens these lines and places a hand over my heart. My left hand, my offhand, holds the paper while I craft this piece. It places the nail to be hammered home. My left hand is the platform on which my book rests while I turn the pages. It tends the line or spins the reel while my right hand casts the rod or fights the fish. My left hand lifts the lid while I stir, taste, add spices with the other. It is battered, holding the scars, containing the histories my right hand commits to paper. It testifies to my limited skill as a carpenter and my determination to continue. My left hand never craves attention or raises itself to be acknowledged. It only holds those dearest to me, as if afraid of sharing its secrets. So I said this line the other day. I'm a teacher. I know I'm a teacher. I hope I'm a poet. And I was digging through some old stuff, and this is the first performance piece I ever did. Usually I stand up and sit down to this. I dusted it off from 15 years ago, polished it up, and it's about my passion for teaching, so I thought I'd share it. I want to rise and make a fist and shake it in the face of anyone who harms one of my children. Any of the 45 of them who come into my life every day, whether that person be an adult who doesn't believe or the kids who can't keep from saying the unkind words that cut so deep, the wounds will never show or heal. Because you can't tell me that all those bruises come from walking into the door again. And you can't tell me that those words don't replay on tapes they can't erase for a lifetime. I want to rise and stand in front of them, hoping to comfort, create, and annihilate the fear that I see in their eyes. I want them to know that what I give is real, that I can feel the needs that drive them to their knees and to the tears they cry when they know no one is near enough to see the weakness that they feel, or the fear that they are too scared to admit to out loud. But if we care too much, we are going to hurt. And if we reach out our hand, it might get slapped. And if we touch the soul of another, we might lose ourselves. I rise. I teach. Thank you.
This is a poem I can now read because I'm in Oregon, not in my hometown. And it's about neighbors. My name's Camille, and it's called Neighbors. Unit 1A. Doors always open. I walk slowly by, glimpse checkerboard floors and watercolor beaches. In the holiday season, we're handed a poppy seed loaf with generous smiles where secret lies. Unit 3B. They hardly emerge from hunched over studying, pale hands typing, thin legs biking, their garden grows scraggly, and eyes become bloodshot. Unit Unknown. He holds a thick leash attached to a drooling beast. They walk twice a day, greased hair shining, phone to his ear, he spits and he swears as the dog veers into flower beds. Unit 21D. Dinner at 5, lights out. Closed curtains, rise at dawn, time to play. Fire sparks, faces glow. Bike to school, 2 by 2, pedal faster, faster, no hands. Laugh, learn, repeat. Unit 17G. Strangers flood in and out. A dog the color of honey doesn't bark anymore. Her face is tight, fingers worn, hair bright white and spiked in peaks. We've gotten tall, she says. You've gotten old, we think. Unit 4B. In a tracksuit, she walks, pulled by a small, nervous dog. No bread for me, she says with pride. No fun for you, we say with pity. Unit 6F. She tests the pool temperature right next to the heater and grins. 80 degrees, she says smugly. We shiver in the cold, deep end. She walks home to her bells, thousands of them, always swinging, never ringing. Unit 69C. He leans against a post, cigar in one hand, puffing and filling the sidewalk with sweet smoke. His dog doesn't mind. They stare at all passers-by, surveying the scene with a sneer and a wave. Unit 7F. They live loudly, with snarling pets and blaring TVs. He fondly strokes the Mercedes-Benz. She sports neon hoops. They cackle and squeal, day in and day out. Unit 0. A hint of scented candles, walls lined with bookshelves. There are 2 cats, both striped. There are 2 sisters. One has curly hair and the other doesn't. The garage has too many bikes, and the roof groans at night. But even with a lack of insulation, it is warm. Thank you.
Hello. I'm actually writing a book, and it's off to my editor right now. It's coming out in a month and a half, and so I'm going to read 2 poems from that. The first one is called Order. Do you think that the mighty black bear ever thinks himself too much, or that the wilted petals turn dust, regret their having fallen? I suppose that nature does her calling and that the order of all follows suit. And I don't think the summer plants mute when they stop their growing and fall over. I don't curse the woolly-headed clover having taken over my yard, or the salamander's scar from maybe a frightful journey. See, the seasons do their melodic turning, and the world is at peace with her stages. It's marked with impermanence in pages, and a less solemn song could not come. For even death has its drum in this place of symphony. Thank you. And one more, it's called Amber Honey. I want new blossoms and amber honey so heavy on my tongue that I for once cannot speak. I want pollen falling from my eyelashes that weighs them down to rest for weeks with every bat and every blink. And I want more elderberry wine to drink than I know what to do with. I want far more firelight in my days, and I want your gaze, your gaze, your gaze. I want lavender linens to bathe my skin and dresses of crepe paper moss so thin to float while I go around and around. I want that every vine to drown in, and I want you, I want you, I want you. I want the ground and the dirt and the roots between my fingertips and my toes to feel the warming pulse of. I want flower petals caught in the lacings of my boots that mean I lie down in roses, but I rise in sunshine. And I want a softer touch, but to hold just as much as I am meant to. And I want you, I want you, I want you. Thank you.
When I was introduced to Shakespeare, I lived in a family of great readers who were mostly illiterate. But what I was given by him was that love and death, you could talk about those things. And I haven't shut up since. So, this is the last cookie. He died with a cookie in his hand, 3 in his stomach, snickerdoodles. His grimace slick with butter, the crumbs he'd yet to lick off. He worried she was trying to fatten him up, take the edge off him, when she'd done that years ago by simply taking his hand on a wet North Beach afternoon, asking him to walk with her. No need in her voice, no plea, but the question, the challenge he heard, to cast off the comfort of being alone, to share a cup of tea when he'd never shared anything, to please slow down, because she refused to run, no matter the clock or the destination. Her power as she aged was presence, the surprise of her tears when he was unkind or careless. How well she knew him, the thoughts behind his eyes, his words. There came judgments, the brokered peace of fatigue, the clumsy gift of a blouse that showed her breasts, that made her smile, that she exchanged for a scarf. He never understood her love of dirt, yet hid his grief when there were no flowers in winter. He fought for the promise of romance against the confusions of age. After children, after flesh cut away and pains that would not be masked, she brought color to his life, frustration and meaning. Cookies, each one better than the one before. This is Wish. Don't remember me for what I've done, all the pretty work rich with effort, not for what I planned or dreamed I was capable of, but for those things started and left unfinished, not quite useful and maybe never, yet still in motion toward being something. And this is my last one. It's because it's February and it happens to be a month where we celebrate many joinings in my family. Sonnet If. If you should bless me with your smile, I will reward your shameless dare. I never questioned faith or heart or proffered kiss or silent tear. If you should bless me with your smile and to my doubts not once give way, no even should I quit this earth and breathless be at end of day, that long past death and long past life does love recall where first it struck. In pleasure's hold please let me lie, and give me leave to voiceless be, so I may look at you the while, if you should bless me with your smile. I have no idea how to
Thank you. Patricia.
Good evening. Night near Los Leones Canyon. That night last summer, you had me sleep in the studio where your brother had died, in his narrow single bed, smoke-imbued wood walls and the cracked grand piano like an empty salon of a great master. All night, a mockingbird sang from the chaparral outside the open windows, hot wind gusting down the canyon, banging the broken bamboo screen outside the moonlit panes. He lived alone but for a brown mutt and so many crystal balls that the room once caught fire. After the fire, he purged all his art, brushes, easels, and paints, keeping only the ruined piano, the little bed, and the dog. The dog, on the night the brother died, howled up a storm. The neighbors put it down to the moon, or a mockingbird driving the dog to lunacy. When it became silent, everyone slept. Rigid in the narrow bed, impaled in a moonbeam, I wait for a spirit to appear, for the mockingbird to cease, for the sun to rise over the mountain.
Do we have any other spontaneous readers that would like to share? Okay, great. Thank you all so much for coming. I did think of something the library is doing this month. It's actually really important, so nobody tell the library director I forgot to tell you before. Tomorrow, we are having the author Nicholas Kristoff and his wife Cheryl Wu Dunn will be at the McMinnville Community Center. They will be discussing their book that just came out last month, Tightrope, Americans Reaching for Hope. If you haven't read it, I absolutely recommend it. It is a look at the cycle of poverty in America. Specifically, Nick Kristoff is from Yamhill, so he starts with looking at the lives of the people that were with him on his school bus growing up and goes out from there. I won't say it's the easiest read I've ever read, but it is very powerful and very good, and so he and his wife will be here tomorrow at the community center. The event starts at 6, but get there early because we're expecting a packed house. And if crowds are not your thing, we will be recording it, so it will be showing up on the local MCM 11. And then the library, we are having a discussion about the book on Thursday, February 20th. And even if you decide not to participate in any of the activities, I do absolutely recommend the book. It's very important, especially in this time. And yes, thank you. Nancy wants to say something.
I have to promote the gallery here real quick. All you do is officially for Carolyn. I just want to point out between these two rooms, these are all McMinnville and Newburgh High School student art. So if you don't have time to look at it today, it will not be here next month. It's only up through March 2nd. So next poetry night, it's gone. Please take a minute. David, you're probably going to recognize a bunch of these names because you had them in school. But please look. We had someone come in the other day and not realize this was high school students. They thought it was one of our artists. So please take a look around. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay! Okay, I think that's all the announcements that we have. So we will be back here next month on March 5th. We will have another Airlie Press poet, Gary Lark, will be here reading. Thank you so much, Jessica. Jessica has books for sale. Please support her. Thank her for coming out here and sharing her work with us. And thanks. Have a great month, everyone.